Check it out now with Chunk Show Brother.
Hello people, a Chunk here. Welcome to episode 3 of Brick by Brick for the map Vessel. I mentioned in the last video that episode 3 would cover weapons and spawns, but in prepping for this episode it became clear that although the two are strongly connected, it would probably be better to address them in separate videos, just because of how much there is to talk about on each subject. So that's what we're going to do. This episode is going to focus on weapons. We're going to look at where the weapons have been placed and why they were placed there. We're also going to talk about spawn times. Let's start off by talking about power weapons. The most obvious place to put power weapons on a map is usually at its weakest points. And when I say the weakest points, I'm talking about those places where players are either the least likely to go or the places where players are the most vulnerable, either because of an elevation disadvantage or because of a lack of cover. The weakest points on Vessel are the bottoms on the sides of the map, and that's where I've placed two of my power weapons, the Sniper and the Plasma Caster. One of the sides has a jump up to the second level, which leads directly to a jump up to the third level. I did not want the sniper rifle on that side because it's much easier to use from higher elevations. I always prefer to make players have to work for an elevation advantage after they pick up the sniper. So the side with the jump up has the Plasma Caster. The Plasma Caster is a really interesting weapon to me. It's the rare power weapon that can be maybe even more effective from lower elevations than it is at higher elevations. I feel like it can be really effective at attacking opponents in the middle section of the map. I've placed 4 other items on the map that I would consider to be mid-tier weapons. There's a battle rifle, a suppressor, pulse grenades, and a speed boost. I knew going in that I wanted something on each of the pillar platforms, something that would encourage players to leave the center pathways to grab them. Since one of the pillars is much higher than the other, I placed the weaker of the 2 items on the high one, and that ended up being the pulse grenades. On the lower platform, I put the speed boost. Speed boost isn't the greatest on maps that are made for high player counts, but it's really effective on 1v1 and 2v2 maps, especially if you can combine it with a close quarters weapon. Speaking of close quarters weapons, I mentioned the suppressor. I've put the suppressor on the opposite side of the map from the speed boost. This means that in order to get this powerful combination, a player has to successfully travel from one side of the map to the other. That placement is a great example of my personal approach to setting up weapons. I like to place items in places that are less than ideal and make players have to earn the right to use them in their most effective locations. Or in this case, make players have to work to obtain the most effective combinations of items. The final mid-tier weapon is the battle rifle. The main advantage of the battle rifle in this game is that it's more effective at mid to long distances than the pistol is. Falling in line with the approach I've just mentioned, I placed the BR in the center walkway. The engagement distances that a player is likely to experience from that part of the map are definitely not the most advantageous range for the BR. The BR should be most effective around the outer rings of the map, so I like the idea of putting it in the middle and letting players decide whether they want to stay near the center of the map, which offers the most movement options and cover, or move towards the outskirts where the BR may be at more of an advantage. Finally, I've placed a set of frag grenades on each side of the map. I don't have any reason why, it's just what I do. The last subject for today is weapon times, and by that I mean how often weapons respawn. There are a couple of layers to this. First, I let the strength of the item determine how quickly it respawns. That means that my weakest items spawn the fastest, and my strongest weapons spawn the slowest. On Vessel, I have my frag grenades set to respawn every 30 seconds and my mid-tier weapons every 60 seconds. My power weapons have the longest respawn times. This is where the second layer comes in. Personally, I like to stagger my power item spawn times. And by stagger, I just mean that I like to have each item set to a different respawn time. On this map, I have the plasma caster set to spawn every 2 minutes, and the sniper rifle set to spawn every 3 minutes. The main reason that I like to stagger my spawn times is that it forces players to use a different strategy each time the weapons spawn. For example, at the beginning of the game, every weapon is up and available to be obtained. Players have to prioritize which item they want to go for. 60 seconds into the game, all of the mid-tier weapons will be up again, and the team that's in control at that point will need to decide which of those weapons to prioritize. 2 minutes into the game, the plasma caster and the mid-tier weapons will be up, and going for the plasma caster could mean that you're conceding mid-tier weapons to the other team. At 3 minutes into the game, you repeat the same situation, except with the sniper instead of the plasma caster, which might change the decision-making process. Overall, I just prefer this approach over having power weapons on the same respawn times and repeating the same decision-making process every time. So that should give you a little bit of insight into my weapon layout approach. I hope you found something useful in it. I will be back soon with episode 4, in which we will discuss spawning. Thank you for watching. Later, people.